So if you walk down Cheung Sha Wan Road in Hong Kong today, you might actually notice something, well, genuinely strange.
Yeah, you really will. It's subtle, but it's there.
Right. If you look closely at the ground floors of the older, like 1960s factory buildings,
Yeah.
they're actually sinking. I mean, they dip anywhere from 10 to 30 centimeters below the actual street level. And if you stand there on a breezy morning miles away from the current coastline, you can literally smell ocean salt.
Which is wild to think about.
It totally is. And the reason why is because you are walking on top of a murdered bay. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Yeah, it is a really profound physical reality to confront. And today we are looking at an incredibly detailed source.
Yes, the Universal Spiritual Geospatial Historical Dossier.
Exactly. And it focuses entirely on this single district in Kowloon, Hong Kong, called Cheung Sha Wan.
And our mission for this deep dive is to basically peel back the heavy layers of concrete and, the modern infrastructure of this one specific place.
Right. To see what's underneath.
Exactly. We are going to explore how ancient cultural cosmology, so specifically Cantonese Feng Shui and maritime folklore, collided head-on with British colonial rationalism.
And we're not just going to, list off historical dates here.
No, definitely not. We're cutting straight down through the geology of this district to uncover 5 specific stories, and we'll highlight the hidden gems that you can actually go look for as a tourist today.
And then we'll cap it all off with a reflection on how we remember the places we, well, completely destroy.
Right. So to really understand the mechanics of any city, you kind of have to start with the foundational layer.
The physical land itself. Or, in the case of Cheung Sha Wan, the water that used to be there.
Right, because the name Cheung Sha Wan literally translates to Long Sandy Bay. And back in the 1800s, that was not a metaphor.
No, it was a beautiful, sweeping, sandy coastline.
But in the local Cantonese Feng Shui principles, that shape wasn't just pretty scenery, it formed a highly specific geographical configuration.
Yeah, what the dossier calls a jade belt water formation and a dragon entering water node.
Which, I mean, those sound incredibly abstract to a lot of people.
They do, yeah. But they are deeply mechanical concepts in Feng Shui. In this, spatial cosmology, energy, or qi, is not static.
It flows.
Exactly. It flows dynamically. It travels down from the mountains, moving like a dragon over the topography. And water acts as a natural boundary that stops, gathers, and pools that energy.
So geographically speaking, a sweeping, curving bay acts almost like a pair of open arms catching the wealth and prosperity rolling off the hills.
Holding it safe from malevolent winds. Yeah.
Right. It's a natural basin for positive energy.
That is a perfect way to visualize it.
Yeah.
It was an incredibly powerful, wealth-gathering geographic shape. But that entirely changes when the 1890s arrive.
Because the British colonial administrators show up.
Right, and they look at this sweeping, sandy bay, and they are definitely not looking through the lens of a dragon entering water node.
No, through the lens of colonial rationalism, they just see an inefficient, awkwardly shaped shoreline.
One that's really difficult to build ports on.
So they systematically begin reclaiming the land. They start dumping fill into the water, paving over the sand to build rigid, straight-edged infrastructure.
Which, from a Feng Shui perspective, is a disaster. They essentially put a concrete lid over the watermouth.
They choked off the very energy node that was supposed to bring sustained, stable prosperity.
The spatial wisdom of the local culture was just completely ignored in favor of logistical efficiency.
And by putting a lid on that natural basin, I mean, the energy didn't disappear,
No,
right?
it was severely compressed underground.
Yeah.
And the historical record correlates this compressed spatial energy with the chaotic, highly volatile boom and bust economic cycles the district suffered for the next century.
It makes complete sense if you view the city as a living organism. Like, if you pinch a major artery, the pressure has to build up somewhere until it violently releases.
Exactly. And the physical evidence of that suppressed geography still manifests today.
Going back to those sinking buildings I mentioned at the start.
Yeah, that is the buried sand from the old bay, slowly, relentlessly settling beneath the heavy concrete over decades. The land is literally tired.
Wow. And you mentioned the ocean salt earlier, too. The olfactory stratigraphy of the area is fascinating.
It really is. In certain microclimates along that road, the air layers itself perfectly.
Like, you breathe in the modern concrete dust, and beneath that you can smell the heavy, lingering industrial grease from the mid-century factories.
And underneath it all, that faint hint of sea salt from a bay that hasn't existed for well over 100 years.
A literal smell time machine hovering on a street corner.
Yeah.
But we have to realize that this coastline wasn't just an abstract shape on a map or like a concept of wealth gathering.
No, it was the entire universe for the indigenous maritime community who physically lived there.
Right. The physical land changed, but what did that actually mean for the people who lived on the water?
Well, it meant total displacement. The Tanka, who were historically referred to as moat people, lived their entire lives in floating villages of anchored sampans right over that sandy bay.
And their maritime cosmology was entirely distinct from the land-dwelling population.
Completely. They viewed the living ocean as the source of all sustenance and life, watched over and guarded by the sea goddess Tin Hao.
So for the Tanka, the sandy beach itself was a sacred liminal threshold. Because think about why that is. The ocean is fluid, it's alive, it provides their food. The land is static, foreign, often dangerous.
It's where the authorities collect taxes and where unfamiliar sicknesses spread.
Exactly. The beach is the literal physical contact point where those two dimensions touch. It's the border wall between their sanctuary and the foreign world.
So when the colonial reclamation projects began, they didn't just alter the shoreline. Following the reclamation, forced land resettlement policies in the 1950s moved the Tanka out of their boats.
And into rigid, high-rise concrete blocks.
Yeah. And this wasn't just an economic shift taking away their fishing jobs. It enacted a severe cosmological violence.
It completely destroyed the spatial foundation of their entire worldview. Their sacred threshold, that liminal boundary of sand, was just paved over with asphalt.
They lost their livelihood, their ritual space, and their entire map of reality in one fell swoop.
But if you are wandering the district today, there is a hidden detail that shows this world refusing to stay buried.
Oh, this is one of my favorite details in the dossier.
Right. If you explore the narrow alleys near Kuilan and Winglung streets, you'll spot some very unusual underground drainage systems.
They are not designed with grates to catch surface rain from storms.
No, they are built specifically to manage intense groundwater seepage, meaning the buried beach is literally still breathing and weeping water right under the asphalt.
It's incredible. And the cultural scars are just as visible as the physical ones, if you know what is missing.
What do you mean?
There is a glaring architectural absence in this specific area today. In almost every other coastal district of Hong Kong where the Tanka historically lived, you find prominent, heavily trafficked temples dedicated to the sea goddess Tin Hao.
Oh, right. But in Cheung Sha Wan, a major temple is remarkably absent.
Exactly. It's a physical symptom of a community whose spiritual map was shattered and never successfully rebuilt on land. They simply couldn't translate their fluid, ocean-based religion into a landlocked, concrete reality.
Okay, so let's follow the timeline here. The colonial government has paved over the sacred beach. They've displaced the entire maritime community.
Yep.
They now have this newly created, vast expanse of flat land. What do they actually choose to build on it?
Well, they built a massive government abattoir,
A slaughterhouse.
a massive public slaughterhouse. From a colonial rationalist perspective, this made perfect logistical sense. They need to feed a growing city. The location was near the water for importing livestock. It was far enough away from the wealthy colonial business district so they wouldn't smell it. And it was perfectly situated near working-class labor pools.
Wait, hold on. The British built a factory of mass death directly on top of what you just explained, was a sacred wealth-gathering bay.
Yeah, they did.
Did they do that on purpose to spite the local beliefs, or were they just completely oblivious to the map the locals were using?
They were entirely oblivious. The colonial administration wasn't exactly consulting Feng Shui masters for their urban planning.
Clearly not.
But the clash of these two worldviews created a profound spatial paradox.
Yeah.
In Cantonese Feng Shui cosmology, an abattoir is the supreme node of malevolent energy.
Right, because of the death.
Exactly. You have killing energy generated by the constant daily termination of life. You have the concept of blood malevolence soaking into the earth. And crucially, you have the wrongful death energy of the slaughtered cows.
Why cows specifically?
Well, in traditional southern Chinese agricultural society, the cow is not just livestock. The cow is a partner in labor.
Oh, I see.
It helps plow the fields, it sustains the family. Therefore, it is deserving of deep moral sympathy.
So slaughtering them en masse in an industrial setting generated an incredibly powerful, unquiet spiritual energy.
Precisely. So by placing this slaughterhouse directly on top of the suppressed watermouth node of wealth and life, They created a severely toxically imbalanced space.
Wow. If Feng Shui is essentially about the smooth, healthy circulation of a city's blood or its vital energy, placing a factory of mass death at a major gathering point is like it's like injecting a massive blood clot directly into the city's heart.
You couldn't design a worse clash of spatial logic if you tried, and the infrastructure required to manage that level of blood and death leaves permanent physical scars on the urban landscape.
So if you want to see the ghosts of the Saboteur today, you don't look for the building itself, which I assume was demolished long ago.
Right, it's gone. You look at the municipal street design where it once stood.
Because the roads in that specific grid have these abnormally wide central drainage channels.
Yeah, they look entirely out of place for a normal city street.
They were designed specifically to wash away massive amounts of liquid and blood on an industrial scale.
It's grim, but it's history. You can also still spot special corrosive-resistant asphalt on the ground in patches.
And heavy-duty industrial cleaning tiles clinging to the exterior walls of some of the older surrounding buildings. The city's skin still remembers the mechanics of what happened there.
Which logically leads us to the next massive disruption. Because building massive, highly efficient food infrastructure and heavy logistics warehouses does something very specific to a district's profile.
It turns it into a primary military target.
Exactly. Which becomes tragically apparent when the Second World War breaks out and the Japanese military arrives.
Bringing us to the darkest layer of this geography, which the dossier calls the era of starvation.
Yeah. During the occupation of Hong Kong, because Cheung Sha Wan was an industrial and food processing hub, the Japanese military immediately requisitioned the factories and that very abattoir for their own logistics.
So they seized control of the food supply.
Right, and implemented a brutal rationing system. This system heavily favored their own soldiers and the military machine, while systematically and intentionally starving the civilian population.
They literally took a landscape designed for mass food production and inverted it into a landscape of mass starvation.
And right next door, entirely within the district's geographical boundaries, the Japanese established the Sham Shui Pol POW camp,
which was notorious for severe overcrowding and deadly outbreaks of dysentery and beriberi. Thousands of prisoners of war and civilians died in agonizing conditions.
It was horrific. And when we look at how the local cosmology processes that level of intense trauma, we have to understand the concept of unsacrificed wandering souls.
Which is what exactly?
In local folk religion, when people die in mass trauma, without the proper culturally mandated burial rituals and grave sweeping, their spirits are untethered. It creates an unhealed spatial wound.
An unfinished mourning.
Yeah. Because this immense trauma was never properly addressed with large-scale public memorials after the war, the psychological weight of it was simply pushed underground, much like the bay itself.
And if you actually go to the site of the former POW camp today at dawn, you'll feel something incredibly unsettling.
You really will.
The physical space has been transformed into shockingly mundane public facilities. It's public parks, basketball courts, very normal urban infrastructure. But if you stand there before the city gets too loud, you can feel it.
The dossier says it suffers from a condition you could call site aphasia.
Like the medical condition.
Yeah, just like a person with aphasia loses their ability to speak or comprehend language after a traumatic brain injury, this physical location has been traumatized to the point where it has literally lost its voice.
It is a jarringly seamless, overly peaceful, modern calm that feels entirely unnatural.
It's a heavy lid of silence, masking deeply suppressed historical trauma.
It is the eerie, palpable feeling of a place trying desperately hard to pretend nothing bad ever happened there.
Exactly.
So how does a physically traumatized, spiritually bleeding district recover after a devastating war?
Well, it becomes the frantic emergency landing pad for an entirely new wave of displaced people.
Ah, the post-1949 industrial diaspora.
Right. This fundamentally reshaped the district again. Following the political shifts in mainland China, wealthy textile tycoons from Shanghai fled to Hong Kong.
And they needed a place to set up operations quickly.
And Cheung Sha Wan, with its flat reclaimed land and existing industrial zoning, was the perfect blank slate. They brought massive capital, heavy machinery, and deep expertise in garment manufacturing.
Which triggered a massive economic boom. The district became a powerhouse of production. But the architecture they left behind is aggressively utilitarian.
It is.
Why wouldn't these wealthy tycoons build beautiful permanent headquarters for their new empires?
Because of the deep psychology of exile. These industrialists viewed Hong Kong as strictly temporary.
Oh, they thought they were going back.
They truly believed the political situation would resolve and they would eventually return home to Shanghai. So they built with an ethos of minimalist permanence.
Minimalist permanence.
Yeah. These were bare-bones, hyper-pragmatic concrete boxes meant for the maximum extraction of value in the shortest possible time.
They didn't care about aligning with local Feng Shui rituals or putting down deep community roots.
No, not at all. The architecture itself was a psychological defense mechanism.
Imagine building a multi-million-dollar business empire, but deliberately making the buildings ugly and temporary, because admitting you are staying means admitting you can never go home.
It's tragic, really.
The architecture itself is an act of denial. It was a smash and grab on the district's remaining life force.
And that hyper-extractive mindset caused a short-term, explosive economic boom that ultimately exhausted the district's remaining compressed geographical energy.
The rapid industrialization burned through the area's potential.
But it left an incredible sensory, cultural imprint that you can still walk through.
Yes. If you want to experience this history of exile for yourself, you have to head to the wholesale clothing markets that are still thriving on Cheung Sha Wan Road today.
You have to go early, though.
Right, between 6 and 9 a.m. to really catch the rhythm of it. You will smell the dry, dusty scent of raw cotton mixed with the sharp tang of chemical dyes.
And you'll hear the frantic, bilingual haggling rapidly swishing back and forth between the local Cantonese and the Mandarin of the textile traders who trace their lineage back to those Shanghai tycoons.
And you will literally feel the heavy rumble of ancient 1970s industrial elevators vibrating behind worn, faded marble door frames as massive, crushing bales of fabric are moved around.
It is the complex history of displacement, captured entirely in a morning's work.
So when we pull back and look at all 5 of these historical shifts together, the Bay, the Tanka, the abattoir, the POW camp, the textile boom, we arrive at a really profound meta-analysis of urban space.
Right. It's a concept the dossier calls bay ceiling vein usurpation.
What is the actual mechanism behind that? Like, what does that mean?
It means that Cheung Sha Wan isn't just a localized historical quirk in Hong Kong. It is a stark profile of how modern cities operate at a fundamental level.
Because every single new era we've discussed literally used the previous community as its physical and cultural foundation.
Exactly. Actively squashing their history into silence to build its own reality.
The natural wealth-gathering bay was squashed for the colonial port. The maritime Tanka community was squashed for the factories.
The profound trauma of the war was squashed for the rapid economic boom. The veins of the old system are usurped to pump blood into the new one.
And why should you, the listener, care about the history of a single district in Hong Kong? Because your city does this too. I guarantee it.
Absolutely.
The street you live on right now, the supermarket you drive to, the public park you walk your dog through, they are likely carrying the heavy ghost of a landscape or an entire community that was paved over in the name of progress, logistics, or rationalism.
Which leads us to the most provocative and perhaps the most beautiful idea to emerge from all of this. The concept of geo-mourning.
Geo-mourning.
Yeah, because despite all this aggressive erasure, despite the millions of tons of concrete, the abattoirs, and the sprawling factories, the district is still officially called Cheung Sha Wan.
Long Sandy Bay.
Exactly. So every single time a local person says the name of where they live or tells a taxi driver where to drop them off, they're performing an inadvertent spirit-summoning ritual.
They are verbally calling out for a beach that hasn't existed for well over a century.
The sand is buried, the water is entirely gone, the Tanka boats are a memory, but the language itself forces the modern city to remember.
The name is a geographical ghost that simply refuses to be exorcised by concrete.
It's a powerful reminder that while modern infrastructure can bury a place physically, culture and language have a stubborn, deeply ingrained persistence.
We mourn the lost geography every single time we speak its ancient name, even if we don't realize we're casting that spell.
It's beautifully put.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on as you go about your day. If the ancient names of our cities and neighborhoods are actually unconscious spells, keeping old, destroyed geographies alive, keeping old, destroyed geographies alive, what happens when we start naming massive modern developments after abstract marketing concepts?
Right.
You know, the ones places called the Summit or Oasis or the Nexus. When the next era eventually paves over our current world, are we building a new layer of the city that will have absolutely no history left to summon? Think about the ground beneath your feet right now and ask yourself what its name is trying to tell you.